The great hall floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure orbiting the planet Nexum Prime. Inside, representatives from 12 alien species gathered around a circular table that glowed with holographic displays. These were the rulers of the Vrex Empire, an alliance that had controlled this part of the galaxy for 300 years. They had conquered 47 worlds without ever losing a single war. Commander Thal stood at the center of the room. His insect-like body clicked and shittered as he moved, his multiple eyes scanning the council members. He was proud to present his latest discovery to the Empire. On the holographic display, a small blue planet appeared, spinning slowly in the projection. "This is Earth," Thal announced. His voice translated through devices worn by all council members. "A primitive world. One planet. No faster-than-light travel. They still use chemical rockets to reach their own moon." The council members leaned forward with interest. Some laughed. Others made dismissive gestures with their various appendages. Thal continued his presentation, showing images of human cities, human vehicles, and human weapons. Everything looked ancient compared to Vrex technology. "They fight each other," Thal explained, showing footage of human wars. "They cannot even unite their own species. They have over 200 separate governments. They use nuclear weapons, which are barely more powerful than our standard plasma rifles." One council member, a tall being made of crystalline structures, spoke up. "Why do we waste time on such a weak species? Simply take what we need." Thal nodded. "Exactly my recommendation. I propose we send them our standard ultimatum. They will surrender immediately when they see our fleet." Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Park Ji-ho sat in the United Nations building in Geneva. The large conference room was filled with representatives from every nation on the planet. Ji-ho was young for a diplomat, only 35 years old, but he had earned respect through his careful negotiations and sharp mind. Beside him sat Dr. Kim Hana, an astrophysicist who had been monitoring unusual signals from deep space. Hana's hands trembled slightly as she held a tablet. "Ambassador, the transmission is coming through now," she whispered. The large screens at the front of the room flickered to life. Commander Thal's face appeared, his insect features alien and disturbing to human eyes. His message was translated by their computers, and the words were clear and cold. "Humans of Earth, you have been evaluated by the Vrex Empire. Your world contains resources we require. You will surrender control of your planet. You will provide 70% of all resources as tribute. You will accept our occupation forces. You have 30 of your days to comply. Refusal means destruction." The transmission ended. The room erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for resistance. The American president stood up, her face pale. "We have to be realistic. Did you see their ships? We can't fight that." Ji-ho remained calm, though his heart pounded in his chest. He had studied history his entire life. He knew how humans responded to ultimatums. He looked at Hana, who was already analyzing the transmission data. "Can we fight them?" he asked quietly. Hana shook her head. "Their technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. Maybe thousands, but—" She paused, looking at her tablet. "There are patterns in their communication. Arrogance. They think we're insects to be stepped on." In Seoul, Colonel Lee Taiyang stood in a military command center, watching the same transmission on multiple screens. His staff surrounded him, waiting for orders. Taiyang was 42 years old, a career military strategist who had studied every human war in recorded history. He knew they were outmatched, but he also knew something about warfare that the Vrex might not understand. "Get me everything we can find about these aliens," Taiyang ordered. "Every word in that transmission. Every image of their ships. I want to know how they think." His sister, Captain Lee Minji, contacted him from orbit. She commanded one of Earth's 12 space defense frigates, new ships that humanity had built in the past decade. They were pathetic compared to what they had just seen in the Vrex transmission. "Brother," Minji said over the video link, "we're being ordered to stand by. What do you think we should do?" Tai Yang looked at his younger sister's face on the screen. She was brave, always had been. But bravery wouldn't be enough against an empire that had conquered 47 worlds. "Wait for orders," he said. "But Minji, study their ships. Look for any weakness. Anything at all." The debates on Earth continued for all 30 days. Some nations wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. Protests filled the streets of every major city. Some humans marched demanding peace. Others marched demanding resistance. The media played the Vrex transmission over and over, analyzing every frame. Jiho worked day and night, meeting with world leaders, trying to build consensus. Hannah worked alongside him, gathering every piece of data about the Vrex. She discovered something interesting in their transmissions. The Vrex used the same frequencies, the same patterns, in all their communications. They were predictable. Colonel Tai Yang made the same discovery from the military side. The Vrex ships moved in perfect formations. Their tactics, what little they had shown, followed rigid patterns. They had won 47 wars the same way, using overwhelming force and superior technology. They had never needed to be creative. On the 29th day, the United Nations held a final vote. Every nation sent their choice electronically. Jiho watched the numbers climb on the screen. His hands were sweaty. He knew that whatever happened next would change humanity forever. The vote was unanimous. Earth would not surrender. Jiho was chosen to deliver the response. He sat alone in a communication room, facing a camera that would broadcast to the Vrex Empire. He thought about what to say. He could be diplomatic. He could be angry. He could beg. Instead, he chose simple truth. "Commander Thal," Jiho said, looking directly into the camera, "humanity rejects your ultimatum. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not give you our world. If you want Earth, you will have to take it. But know this, we have never been easy prey. Every conqueror who has ever underestimated us has learned this lesson too late. Leave us in peace, or face the consequences." On Nexum Prime, the Vrex Council watched the humans' response. Then they began to laugh. Commander Thal laughed loudest of all. These primitive creatures thought they could threaten the Vrex Empire? It was absurd. It was insulting. It was amusing. "Send the 7th Fleet," Thal ordered, still chuckling. 300 ships. Show these humans what real power looks like. Destroy their Mars colony as a demonstration. They will beg to surrender after that. The Vrex commanders left the council chamber, already sea-thrust. "Captain, what are you doing?" Her first officer shouted. "Ramming speed," Minji said calmly. "All crew to escape pods. You have 30 seconds. That's an order." Her crew scrambled to obey. Minji stayed at her controls, guiding the Soul Guardian toward the massive Rex ship. The battlecruiser tried to turn, tried to bring its weapons to bear, but it was too slow. The Soul Guardian, tiny compared to its target, smashed into the battlecruiser's bridge at full velocity. Both ships exploded in a brilliant flash of light. But Minji had ejected in her escape pod at the last second, along with her crew. They tumbled through space, watching the battle unfold around them. The 3 seconds of vulnerability became 10 seconds as Vrex crews panicked and made mistakes. The 10 seconds became 30 as human weapons continued to pour fire into the confused fleet. Ship after ship exploded or went dark, their systems failing. When the electromagnetic pulses finally faded and the Vrex shields came back online, The damage was done. 73 Vrex ships were destroyed. Another 42 were damaged and limping away. The rest of the fleet, rattled and confused, retreated to the edge of the solar system. Commander Thal stared at his displays in absolute shock. This was impossible. No species had ever hurt the Vrex fleet like this. No primitive civilization had ever been this effective. What had gone wrong? "Sir, we should withdraw," his second officer said. "Regroup and analyze what happened." Thal wanted to refuse. He wanted to order an immediate counterattack. But he had just lost nearly a quarter of his fleet in less than a minute. He needed to understand how. "Retreat," Thal ordered, the word bitter in his mouth. "Fall back to the rally point." On Earth, Ambassador Park Jiho watched the battle results come in through the command center feeds. He had been standing beside Taiyang and Hana the entire time, barely breathing. When the Vrex fleet turned and ran, the entire command center erupted in cheers. But Jiho didn't cheer. He knew this was just the beginning. They had won the first battle through surprise and clever tactics. But the Vrex Empire was vast. They would come back. And next time, they wouldn't be surprised. "Get me casualty reports," Jiho said to Taiyang, "and find out if Captain Lee survived." "She did," Taiyang said, relief flooding his voice. "Her pod is being picked up now. She's injured but alive." Around Earth, the news spread instantly. Humanity had faced an alien invasion fleet and won. People poured into the streets celebrating. But in government offices and military command centers, the leaders knew the truth. This victory would make the Vrex angry. They would come back with more ships, more weapons, and no mercy. In space, rescue crews worked to recover survivors and salvage what they could from destroyed ships. Human crews also boarded damaged Vrex vessels, capturing technology and taking prisoners. Hana immediately began studying the Vrex computers and systems. Every piece of information could save lives in the battles to come. One captured Vrex officer was brought before Jiho. The alien creature looked at him with multiple eyes full of confusion and rage. "How?" The Vrex officer asked through a translation device. "How did you hurt us?" "You are primitive, weak." Jiho looked at the alien calmly. "You made a mistake," he said. "You assumed that because we don't have your technology, we can't fight. But humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to find weaknesses. We know how to adapt. And we know how to refuse surrender." The Vrex officer said nothing more. But there was something new in its eyes now. Something that hadn't been there before. Fear. On Nexum Prime, Commander Thal reviewed the battle recordings for the 100th time. He watched the human frigates retreat, leading his fleet into the trap. He watched the electromagnetic pulse weapons disable his shields. He watched that insane human captain ram her tiny ship into a battle cruiser, sacrificing herself without hesitation. These humans fought differently than any species he had encountered. They didn't follow standard tactics. They didn't value their own lives above victory. They turned their weakness into strength, using their primitive technology in ways the Vrex had never anticipated. For the first time in his 300 years of military service, Thal felt uncertain. The Vrex Council would demand revenge. They would send more ships, bigger fleets. But Thal now understood something crucial. This wouldn't be an easy conquest. The humans were different. They were dangerous in ways that superior technology couldn't overcome. They were unpredictable. They were creative. And worst of all, they had just proven that they could learn from every battle, adapting faster than any opponent could adjust. Thal looked at the casualty reports on his screen. Over 30,000 Vrex personnel dead. Hundreds of thousands more injured. In one battle. Against a species that didn't even have faster-than-light travel. What would happen when the humans started using captured Rex technology? What would happen when they learned to build their own advanced weapons? The thought sent a chill through Thal's exoskeleton. The Vrex Empire had declared war on humanity, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they imagined. They had given humans a reason to evolve, to adapt, to become the warriors they had always been capable of being. And now there was no going back. 6 weeks after the Battle of Mars, the Vrex Empire mobilized its full military might. 5 entire armadas converged from across their territory. Over 2,000 warships carrying weapons designed to crack planets and burn atmospheres. The Vrex Council had made their decision clear. Humanity would be completely destroyed. No survivors. No negotiations. They would be an example to every other species in the galaxy. Commander Thal led the massive fleet personally. His pride had been wounded at Mars, but more than that, his understanding of warfare had been shaken. He needed to prove that the human victory had been luck, nothing more. The Council had given him unlimited resources and one simple order: end the human problem permanently. On Earth, Ambassador Park Ji-ho stood in what remained of the United Nations building. A Vrex orbital strike had destroyed the upper floors 3 days ago. The meeting now took place deep underground in bunkers designed to survive nuclear war. Representatives from every nation gathered around him, their faces showing exhaustion and determination in equal measure. The new fleet is 50 times larger than the first one, Ji-ho told the assembled leaders. Direct defense is impossible. We need to change our strategy completely. Dr. Kim Hanna stepped forward with a tablet in her hands. Dark circles shadowed her eyes from weeks without proper sleep, but her voice was steady and confident. We've been studying the captured Vrex technology. I have good news and bad news. The bad news is we can't build their weapons or shields yet. The good news is we've figured out how their faster-than-light drives work. What does that mean for us? The Chinese premier asked. It means we don't have to fight them at Earth, Hanna explained. We can take the war to them. Hit their supply lines, their territory, their colonies. Make them defend everything instead of focusing on attacking us. In the Military Command Center, Colonel Li Taiyang studied maps of Vrex space captured from their computers. The Vrex Empire controlled hundreds of systems, thousands of facilities. They had grown complacent over centuries of easy victories. Their defenses were designed to stop external attacks, not internal sabotage. We can't beat them in direct combat, Taiyang said to his assembled officers. So we won't fight them directly. We'll become ghosts. We'll hit them where they're weak, then disappear before they can respond. One general shook his head. That's guerrilla warfare. Hit and run tactics. That's what inferior forces do when they can't win. Taiyang smiled grimly. Exactly. And it works. Humans have been using these tactics for thousands of years. The Vrex have never faced an enemy that refuses to stand and fight. They don't know how to deal with it. Captain Li Minji had recovered from her injuries in time to volunteer for the first strike mission. She now commanded a captured Vrex destroyer that human engineers had modified with their own systems. Her crew was a mix of military personnel and civilian engineers, all volunteers who knew they might not return. Our target is a Vrex fuel depot in the Tela system, Minji briefed her crew. It's lightly defended because it's deep in their territory. They never expect attacks from inside their own space. We jump in, destroy the depot, and jump out. The entire operation should take 15 minutes. Her second officer raised his hand. Captain, if we destroy their fuel, what happens to the invasion fleet? They run out of gas, Minji said simply. A warship without fuel is just an expensive piece of metal floating in space. Questions? There were none. Her crew understood the mission. More importantly, they understood why it mattered. Every fuel depot they destroyed meant fewer ships attacking Earth. Every supply convoy they ambushed meant fewer missiles falling on human cities. The first human strike team jumped into Vrex space using their newly installed faster-than-light drives. They appeared in the Talos system without warning. The Vrex defenders barely had time to activate alarms before the humans destroyed the fuel depot and vanished again, leaving only debris and confused survivors. Within 2 weeks, 23 similar attacks struck across Vrex territory. Fuel depots exploded. Supply convoys disappeared. Automated mining stations went dark. The Vrex military scrambled to defend their territory, pulling ships away from the invasion fleet heading toward Earth. But the humans weren't just destroying things. They were also sending messages. Every attack site had the same transmission left behind, written in Vrex languages. We didn't want this war. You can end it by leaving. Every day you continue, we will take something from you. On a world called Talos 4, Sergeant Choi Yuna led a small team of human special forces. They had been living in the wilderness of this alien world for 3 weeks, studying Vrex patterns and behavior. The planet was covered in thick forests of strange alien plants. The atmosphere was breathable for humans, though the air tasted strange, and the gravity was slightly higher than Earth normal. Yuna and her 5 team members wore captured Vrex clothing and equipment. From a distance, they looked like Vrex workers. They had learned to mimic Vrex movements, Vrex routines. They knew which checkpoints were lazy, which guards could be bribed, which systems had vulnerabilities. The main power generator is 300 meters that way, Yuna whispered to her team, pointing through the alien trees. 2 guards at the entrance. Security cameras at corners. But I've been watching them for 4 days. The cameras have a blind spot on the east side. Her demolitions expert, a young corporal named Han Do-yun, checked his pack of explosives. How long do we have once the charges are set? 6 minutes before the explosives detonate, Yuna said. We need to be 5 kilometers away when that happens. The explosion will disable the power for the entire military base. Their ships won't be able to refuel for at least a week. They move through the alien forest like ghosts. Years of human military training, combined with desperate determination, made them nearly invisible. The Vrex guards never saw them approach. The cameras never spotted them in the blind spot. The explosives were placed perfectly, timed to detonate deep in the generator core, where the damage would be catastrophic. Yuna and her team were 4 kilometers away when the generator exploded. The blast lit up the night sky of Talos 4. Alarms wailed across the military base. Vrex personnel scrambled in confusion. And by the time they organized a search, the human team had vanished completely into the wilderness. The only thing the Vrex found was a message, written in their own script on a piece of metal. Your move. Commander Thal received reports of attacks from across Vrex territory. He couldn't understand it. How were humans everywhere at once? They had only captured a few Vrex ships. They couldn't possibly have this many vessels operating in Vrex space. Damage. A single ship could destroy a fuel depot worth billions. A squad of soldiers could disable a power plant supporting thousands of troops. Sir, we need to pull ships back to defend our territory, Thal's second officer urged. The humans are crippling our supply lines. Thal wanted to refuse. The invasion fleet needed every ship to ensure victory over Earth, but the reports kept coming. More attacks. More destruction. The humans were like an infection spreading through the Vrex Empire, impossible to pin down and destroy. Redirect 20% of the fleet to defensive positions, Thal finally ordered. But the invasion continues. We will crush Earth and then deal with these raiders. On Earth, Jiho coordinated the resistance with the help of a growing network of allies. To everyone's surprise, other species conquered by the Vrex were reaching out to humanity. Secret transmissions came from a dozen worlds, offering information and assistance. The Vrex Empire wasn't as unified as they pretended. Many conquered species hated their Vrex masters and saw humanity's resistance as inspiring. "We're not alone in this," Jiho told a secret meeting of world leaders. "The Vrex have enemies everywhere. They've been cruel masters for 300 years. If we can show other species that the Vrex can be beaten, the entire empire might collapse." Hana continued her work with captured Vrex technology. Human engineers were now building their own faster-than-light drives, not as efficient as Vrex versions, but good enough. They were also developing new weapons by combining human creativity with alien technology. Missiles that could track faster-than-light ships. Electromagnetic weapons that could disable entire fleets. "We're learning faster than they can adapt," Hana told Jiho during a brief moment of rest. "Every captured ship teaches us more. Every battle gives us new data. The Vrex have been using the same technology for centuries. They've stopped innovating. But we're innovating every single day." Colonel Tai Yang implemented new tactics based on every battle's results. He created false targets to waste Vrex resources. He spread rumors to make the Vrex paranoid about internal threats. He taught other species resistance fighters how to use human, guerrilla tactics against their Vrex occupiers. The war became something the Vrex had never experienced before. They couldn't pin down their enemy. They couldn't predict human actions. Every time they thought they understood human tactics, the humans changed their approach. It was exhausting and demoralizing. Captain Minji led raid after raid into Vrex territory. Her destroyer had become famous among both humans and Vrex. They called her the Ghost Ship because she appeared without warning and vanished before defenses could respond. She had destroyed 17 major facilities and captured 3 Vrex supply vessels loaded with advanced technology. After one particularly successful raid, Minji broadcast a message to the Vrex fleet. "Commander Thal, this is Captain Lee Minji of Earth. You came to our home with warships and ultimatums. You expected us to surrender like all the others. But humans don't surrender. We adapt. We fight. We win. Every day you continue this war, we become stronger and you become weaker. End this now, while you still have an empire left." Thal listened to the message in his command center. He had never hated an enemy before. Hatred was inefficient, emotional, beneath him. But he hated this human captain. He hated all humans. They had turned his guaranteed victory into a grinding nightmare. They had made the mighty Vrex Empire look weak in front of every species in the galaxy. But worse than hatred was the small voice in his mind that whispered the truth. The humans were right. Every day the war continued, the Vrex became weaker. Resources drained. Ships were lost. Entire bases fell silent. And the humans kept learning, kept adapting, kept fighting with a determination that defied all logic. 6 months into the war, the Vrex Empire had lost 40% of its military capacity. Not from massive battles, but from thousands of small wounds. And humanity had transformed from a primitive single-planet species into a force that operated across dozens of star systems, striking from shadows and vanishing like smoke. The predators had become the prey, and they were learning, far too late, that they should have been afraid. 8 months had passed since the Vrex declared war on humanity. Earth cities lay in ruins, scarred by orbital bombardment and desperate fighting. But humanity survived. They lived in underground complexes, constantly moving, constantly rebuilding. Above the surface, automated defenses and hidden weapons made every Vrex landing attempt costly. Below the surface, humans thrived in a world the Vrex couldn't reach. Ambassador Park Geo worked from a command center 3 kilometers beneath Seoul. The facility was one of dozens spread across the planet, connected by quantum communication that the Vrex couldn't intercept. He looked older now, his hair showing gray that hadn't been there 8 months ago. But his eyes remained sharp and focused. We've made contact with 7 more species inside Vrex territory, Jiho reported to a holographic meeting of world leaders. They're all willing to help us. Some are providing intelligence. Others are actively sabotaging Vrex operations. The Empire is fracturing from within. Dr. Kim Hana entered the room with news that made Jiho smile. "We've done it," she announced. "We can now build our own faster-than-light drives without using Vrex components. They're actually 20% faster than standard Vrex drives. We can outrun them." The implications were enormous. Humanity could now build warships that moved faster than anything in the Vrex fleet. They were no longer dependent on captured technology. They had become innovators in their own right, taking alien concepts and improving them through human ingenuity. On Nexum Prime, the Vrex Council met in emergency session. The great hall that had once echoed with confident laughter now filled with angry voices and accusations. Commander Thal stood before them, facing questions about his failures. "How is this possible?" demanded a council member. "We sent 5 armadas, 2,000 ships. Yet Earth still stands, and our empire crumbles." Thal had no good answers. "The humans fight unlike any species we've encountered. They don't defend their home world directly. Instead, they've spread across our territory like a plague. Every day brings new attacks. Our resources are stretched thin defending thousands of locations." Another council member stood up. "Perhaps we should negotiate peace. Cut our losses and withdraw." Half the council erupted in outrage at the suggestion. The other half remained silent, clearly considering it. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Vrex Empire was divided. Some wanted to continue the war at any cost. Others recognized that humanity was something they couldn't defeat through conventional means. Peace? Thal said bitterly. The humans won't accept peace. They want revenge for every city we've destroyed, every civilian we've killed. They've broadcast our atrocities across the galaxy. 23 species are now in open rebellion because of human propaganda. Colonel Li Taiyang sat in his command center, surrounded by 3-dimensional maps of Vrex space. Red dots marked Vrex military installations. Blue dots marked human strike teams. Green dots marked allied resistance groups. The map showed the reality that the Vrex Council was struggling to accept. The Empire was collapsing. "It's time," Taiyang said to his senior officers. "We've weakened them enough. Now we deliver the killing blow." His officers leaned forward with interest. They had been fighting a defensive war, hitting and running. What killing blow could they possibly deliver against an empire that still had thousands of warships? Taiyang smiled grimly. "We're going to attack Nexum Prime itself. Not to conquer it, not to destroy it, but to prove that we can reach their home world whenever we want. To show them that nowhere is safe." The operation was called Homecoming, and it required perfect coordination. Captain Li Minji would lead a fleet of 50 ships, every vessel humanity could spare for an offensive operation. They would use captured Vrex identification codes and disguise themselves as a returning patrol fleet. Sergeant Choi Yuna's Special Forces team would infiltrate the planet itself. Having spent months posing as cargo workers and gaining access to critical systems. "This is insane," Minji's second officer said when he heard the plan. "Nexum Prime is the most heavily defended world in the Empire. We'll never make it through." "That's what they'll think too," Minji replied. "Which is exactly why it'll work. They've never been attacked at home. They won't expect it. The preparation took 3 weeks. Human engineers modified every ship to match Vrex specifications exactly. They practiced Vrex communication protocols. They studied Vrex patrol routes and schedules. Every detail had to be perfect. One mistake would doom the entire fleet. On the day of the operation, Jiho addressed the fleet via video transmission. "You're not just soldiers today. You're ambassadors. You're teachers. You're going to teach the Vrex what it means to fear. Not through cruelty, but through capability. Show them that humans can reach them anywhere, anytime. Show them that their empire has no walls strong enough to keep us out." The fleet jumped into Vrex space at multiple points, then converged on Nexum Prime along different routes, all arriving at the same time. They transmitted proper identification codes. They moved in proper Vrex formations. They appeared on sensors as friendly vessels returning from patrol. Sergeant Yuna was already on the planet's surface. Her team had gained employment at a cargo facility 2 months earlier, using forged identity documents created by allied species. They had spent weeks mapping the orbital defense network, finding every vulnerability, every outdated system, every lazy security protocol. When the human fleet arrived in orbit, Yuna's team activated their plan. They didn't destroy the defenses. Instead, they introduced false data into the system, making the automated defenses believe the human ships were authorized Vrex vessels. The massive orbital guns that could have destroyed the entire fleet simply ignored them. Captain, Minji's destroyer entered orbit over Nexum Prime without firing a single shot. Around her, 49 other human ships did the same. They could see the planet below, the center of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 300 years. "All ships hold position," Minji ordered. "Do not fire. This is a demonstration only." Instead of attacking, the human fleet broadcast a message, not just to Nexum Prime, but to every Vrex world, every conquered species, every ship in the Empire. Ambassador Jiho's face appeared on billions of screens simultaneously. "People of the Vrex Empire," Jiho said calmly, "I am Ambassador Park Jiho of Earth. Our fleet currently orbits your whole world. Your defenses are disabled. Your capital is at our mercy. We could destroy it. We could kill millions. We could do to you what you have done to us." He paused, letting that sink in. Across the Empire, beings of every species watched in stunned silence. "But we won't," Jiho continued, "because unlike you, we do not wage war on innocence. We came here to deliver a message. This war ends when you accept peace, not submission. We will never surrender. We will never stop fighting. But we will always choose mercy when it's offered to us. Your empire has committed atrocities across 47 worlds. We have documented them all. We have shared this evidence with every species you've conquered. They know what you've done. They know you destroy entire civilizations that refuse to obey. We're different. We fight for survival, not conquest. We want only to be left alone. Leave Earth. Leave our space. End this war. Do it now, and we depart in peace. Continue this war, and we will dismantle your empire piece by piece until nothing remains." The transmission ended. The human fleet held position for exactly 1 hour, demonstrating their complete control over Vrex Prime's defenses. Then, just as suddenly as they had arrived, they jumped away, vanishing before the Vrex military could organize a response. Sergeant Yuna and her team extracted from the planet using a captured shuttle. By the time Vrex security realized their orbital defenses had been compromised, the humans were already gone. On Nexum Prime, the Council met in chaos. Commander Thal sat silently, watching his superiors argue. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others recognized the truth. The humans had proven they could strike anywhere. The Empire's defenses meant nothing. The military advantage meant nothing. Technology meant nothing if your enemy could simply outthink you. How did they do this? One council member demanded, "How did primitive humans infiltrate our capital?" Thal finally spoke. "They're not primitive. We were wrong about them from the beginning. They're adaptable, creative, and relentless. They learn from every mistake. They turn every weakness into strength. They fight with their minds as much as their weapons." "Then what do we do?" asked another council member. Before Thal could answer, more reports flooded in. Across the Empire, conquered species were rising in rebellion, inspired by humanity's raid on Nexum Prime. If humans could reach the Vrex home world, then the Vrex weren't invincible. The fear that had held the Empire together for 3 centuries suddenly cracked. On Earth, Dr. Hana monitored broadcasts from across Vrex space. "It's working," she told Geo excitedly. 17 worlds have declared independence. The Vrex military is pulling back from forward positions to deal with internal rebellions. Their empire is collapsing. Colonel Tai Yang studied casualty reports from the Nexum Prime operation. 0 human losses. Perfect execution. But he felt no joy. The war had cost so much already. Earth's population had decreased by 30%. Millions dead from orbital strikes, famine, and disease. Entire cities erased from existence. "We're winning," Tai Yang said quietly to his sister during a video call. "But the price keeps getting higher." Minji nodded from her ship. She looked exhausted. 8 months of constant combat had aged her. "Do you think they'll surrender now? After we proved we can hit their home?" "I don't know," Tai Yang admitted. "Proud empires don't surrender easily. But we've given them a choice. Peace or destruction. Let's hope they choose wisely." Commander Thal made his own choice in that moment. He had been a loyal servant of the Empire his entire life. But he had also been a military strategist, trained to recognize when a battle was lost. The Vrex couldn't defeat humanity through conventional warfare. The humans adapted too quickly, fought too cleverly, and refused to accept defeat. More importantly, the humans had allies now. Every species the Vrex had oppressed was watching. Every conquered world was calculating whether they could rebel successfully. The Empire was fracturing, and continuing the war would only accelerate its collapse. But Thal also knew the Council would never officially surrender. Pride wouldn't allow it. Some faction would insist on fighting to the bitter end, taking the entire Empire down with them. So Thal made a decision that would be debated by historians for centuries. He would act without the Council's approval. He would do what was necessary to save his people, even if it meant being branded a traitor. He sent a secret transmission to Ambassador Jiho on Earth. Just 5 words. But they would change everything. "I want to negotiate peace." The secret transmission from Commander Thal arrived at the underground command center beneath Seoul at 3 in the morning. Ambassador Park Geo was still awake, as he had been most nights for the past 9 months. He read the message 3 times before believing it was real. "He wants to negotiate," Jiho said to Dr. Kim Hana, who had been working beside him. "Thal, the commander of their entire military. He's asking for peace talks." Hana looked skeptical. "It could be a trick. A way to find our location." "Maybe," Jiho agreed. "But I don't think so. The Vrex Council is divided. We've seen the intelligence reports. Half of them want to continue the war. The other half see the Empire collapsing. Thal might be trying to end this before it's too late." The negotiations took place in neutral space, aboard a station controlled by one of the species that had remained neutral in the war. Jiho arrived with Colonel Lee Taiyang and Captain Lee Minji. Commander Thal came with 2 of his senior officers. Both sides were surrounded by warships, ready to attack if the meeting turned hostile. The two groups met in a simple conference room. Thal's insect-like form seemed less intimidating now, more tired. His multiple eyes moved constantly, studying the humans. Jiho noticed that Thal looked older somehow, worn down by months of impossible warfare. "Ambassador Jiho," Thal said through his translation device. "Thank you for meeting with me." "Commander Thal," Jiho replied carefully. "You said you wanted to negotiate, but the last time we spoke, you promised to destroy Earth." Thal made a gesture that the humans had learned meant acknowledgement among his species. "I was wrong. Not about your planet's resources. Not about your technology. I was wrong about your people. I underestimated you. The entire Rex Empire underestimated you. Is this an official surrender?" Tai Yang asked bluntly. "No," Thal admitted. "The Council will never officially surrender. But I can convince them to end the war. I can make them withdraw from Earth and your territory. In exchange, I need something from you." "What?" Jiho asked. "Help us," Thal said simply. "The Empire is collapsing. Rebellions everywhere. Species we conquered centuries ago are rising up. Without a military to control them, there will be chaos. Civil wars, genocides. Help us create a new order." The request surprised all three humans. They had expected demands for mercy, or threats, or tricks. They hadn't expected Thal to ask for help building something new. But before any agreement could be reached, alarms sounded throughout the station. Thal's officers reported urgent news. A Rex faction loyal to the Council had located the peace talks. They were sending ships to stop the negotiations by force. They would rather destroy Thal and continue the war than accept any peace with humans. "We need to leave now," Minji said, moving toward the exit. But Thal stopped them. "No, we fight them together. If we run now, they'll claim I was kidnapped or coerced. They'll continue the war. But if we fight together, if humans and Rex defeat the extremists together, it sends a message. It shows that cooperation is possible." Jiho made a decision in seconds. "Agreed. All human ships move to defensive positions. Protect this station." The battle that followed would later be called the Battle of Unity Station. 173 Rex warships arrived, loyal to the extremist faction of the Council. They demanded Thal's surrender and the continuation of the war against humanity. They opened fire on the station, but they faced a combined force of human and Rex ships fighting together. Captain Minji's destroyer flew beside Thal's flagship, their weapons targeting the same enemies. Human crews that had spent months fighting Rex soldiers now coordinated with Rex officers to defend a shared position. The extremist fleet was larger and better equipped, but they fought with old tactics, expecting both humans and Thal's forces to follow standard Rex doctrines. Instead, they faced human creativity combined with Rex technology. They faced opponents who coordinated perfectly despite being former enemies. Minji dueled directly with the extremist flagship. Her ship was smaller, less powerful, but she had learned from 9 months of desperate combat. She knew every trick, every desperate maneuver. She led the enemy flagship into a crossfire between 3 Rex ships loyal to Thal, then disabled its engines with a precisely placed missile strike. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, the extremist fleet was destroyed or surrendered. Thal broadcasted the results across the entire Rex Empire. He showed humans and Rex fighting together. He showed that cooperation worked better than domination. "The old empire is dead," Thal announced to every Rex world. "It died the moment we attacked Earth and learned that we are not invincible. We have a choice now. We can cling to the past and watch everything burn. Or we can build something new with our former enemies." On Nexum Prime, the remaining council members watched Thal's broadcast in shocked silence. The extremists were defeated. The military was divided. The conquered species were rebelling. They had no choice left. Peace was the only option. The formal peace treaty was negotiated over 6 weeks. Ambassador Jiho represented humanity and the growing coalition of free species. Commander Thal represented the Vrex, though his authority was constantly challenged by various council factions. The terms were harsh but fair. The Vrex would withdraw from all conquered territories immediately. They would pay reparations to species they had oppressed. War crime trials would be held for Vrex officers who had committed atrocities. The empire would be dissolved and replaced by a federation where every species had equal representation. Many Vrex resisted. Some fled to remote systems, refusing to accept the new order. Others fought brief conflicts, trying to maintain control of key worlds. But the majority accepted reality. The empire was finished. The age of Vrex domination was over. Dr. Hana worked with Vrex scientists to share technology freely among all species. Innovations that the Vrex had hoarded for centuries became available to everyone. Medical advances that could have saved billions were finally distributed. The knowledge that one species had monopolized was released for the common good. 10 years after the war ended, Ambassador Jiho stood in rebuilt Seoul, addressing a gathering of representatives from 40 species. The city had been reconstructed, its buildings incorporating both human and alien architecture. The wounds of war were healing, though the scars would remain forever. "We didn't start this war," Jiho told the assembled delegates. "We didn't want it. We just wanted to live in peace. But when peace was denied to us, we fought. Not because we were the strongest. Not because we had the best technology. We fought because we refused to surrender, and because we learned from every battle." The Vrex Empire lasted 300 years. It conquered 47 worlds. It seemed invincible. But it fell in less than a year because it was built on fear and oppression. What we're building now will last longer because it's built on cooperation and respect. In a nearby building, Colonel Li Taiyang taught military strategy to cadets from 20 different species, including reformed Vrex. His lessons focused not on weapons or technology, but on adaptability and creative thinking. He taught them that the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the biggest guns, but the one who refuses to quit. Captain Minji commanded the new Federation peacekeeping fleet, ensuring no species would ever face extermination again. Her flagship was named the Unity, a reminder that former enemies could become allies when they found common cause. Sergeant Choi Yuna trained special forces teams from across the young Federation. Her students learned human guerrilla tactics, but also learned when not to fight. Violence was a last resort, she taught them. But when it became necessary, they should fight with everything they had. Dr. Hana continued her research, now with access to knowledge from dozens of species. She developed faster-than-light drives that didn't depend on Vrex technology. She created medical treatments that worked on multiple species. She proved that cooperation produced better results than competition. Commander Thal served his sentence for war crimes at a facility designed by humans and Vrex together. But he was also allowed to teach at the new Federation Military Academy, sharing his knowledge and his mistakes. His final lesson to every class was always the same. "We thought we were apex predators," Thal would tell his students, his translator making his words understandable to every species. "We had the best technology, the biggest fleet, 3 centuries of victories. We looked at humanity and saw prey, weak, primitive, easy to conquer. But we were wrong about everything. The humans taught us that strength isn't about technology or numbers. It's about adaptation, about learning from every failure, about refusing to accept defeat, even when defeat seems certain. We declared war on the deadliest species in the galaxy, not because they had the best weapons, not because they were physically superior. They were deadly because they evolved through conflict, because they turned every challenge into a learning opportunity, because they treated survival as non-negotiable. We thought we were hunting prey, but they were never prey. They were always predators. They just hadn't been given a reason to hunt yet. The students would listen carefully, species of every kind learning together in ways that would have been impossible under the old empire. Some were skeptical. How could one species be so dangerous? How could technology matter less than determination? But then they would study the war records. They would see 12 human frigates facing 300 Vrex warships and winning through clever tactics. They would see human strike teams operating deep in enemy territory with nothing but courage and creativity. They would see Captain Minji ramming her ship into a battlecruiser because sometimes sacrifice was the only tactic that worked, and they would understand what Thal had learned too late. The most dangerous opponent isn't the one who seems strongest at the start. It's the one who keeps fighting, keeps learning, keeps adapting until they find a way to win. Humanity had been that opponent. And in teaching the Vrex that lesson, they had changed the entire galaxy forever. On Earth, in a small memorial park in Seoul, a monument stood listing the names of everyone who died during the war. 3 million names carved in stone, representing 3 million lives lost fighting for humanity's survival. Jiho visited the memorial often, reading names and remembering faces. Was it worth it? A young reporter asked him during one visit. All these deaths, all this suffering, was independence worth this price? Jiho looked at the names for a long moment before answering. We didn't choose this war. We didn't want these deaths. But when the choice was between slavery and fighting, between submission and sacrifice, we chose to fight. Not because we wanted to, but because we had no other choice. Every name on this monument represents someone who understood that some things are worth dying for. Freedom, dignity, the right to exist on our own terms. The Vrex thought they could take those things from us because they had bigger ships and better weapons. But they learned what every tyrant eventually learns. You can conquer people with weapons, but you can't make them stay conquered unless you break their spirit. And human spirit doesn't break. It bends, it adapts. It finds ways to survive and resist and eventually overcome. So yes, Jiho said finally, it was worth it, because our children will never have to live under alien rule. Our descendants will never have to surrender their freedom. We paid the price so that future generations wouldn't have to. The reporter published the interview across the Federation. It was read by humans and Vrex and every species between them. Some disagreed with Jiho's conclusions. Some argued that negotiation would have been better than war. Others believed humanity had been too merciful to the Vrex. But everyone agreed on one thing. The galaxy had changed. The age of empires built on conquest was over. The age of cooperation, however imperfect and difficult, had begun, and it had begun because one species, when given an ultimatum between submission and resistance, had chosen to fight. Not because they were the strongest or most advanced, but because they were human. And humans, for better or worse, never learned how to surrender. Commander Thal lived long enough to see the Federation become stable and prosperous. Before he died, he recorded one final message to be shared with anyone who studied the war. If you ever face humanity in conflict, Thal's recording said, remember this. They don't fight to win glory. They don't fight for conquest. They fight for survival. And a species fighting for survival is the most dangerous opponent in the universe. We declared war on them. We thought it would be easy. We were wrong. Don't make our mistake.